Greetings YouTube, this is Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief, and I'm back on Rogues Gallery Incorporated to bring you yet again another Favorite Heroes video segment. Now, this week's Favorite Hero video segment comes courtesy of my mans over at GTA, Grand Theft Analysis. They recommended that I do Favorite Heroes, Favorite Villains for the Death Note series. So, I dressed appropriate for the occasion. This is one of my mini L t-shirts. Probably should have wore the one with light and L on it, but that one's in the laundry because I wore it earlier this week. Anywho, but yeah, so I'm here to bring to you my Favorite Heroes video for my favorite hero of the Death Note series. And actually it's excruciatingly obvious who it would be, and that is the character of L. Now, one thing that's very unique of the character of L is this: that even after the end of the Death Note series, we still don't know much about the history and the background of this character. Honestly, L has remained somewhat of a mystery throughout the entire series. So just to give you a quick rundown of this character, like I said, we don't know much about his history or background. A few things about L that we do know prior to his first appearance in the Death Note series. We know this: L apparently is a world-renowned and very well-accomplished detective. They even call him the greatest detective in the world. And we find out in the second episode of Death Note, before L actually makes his first appearance, that apparently when the higher ups, when the world governments, when Interpol, when they have a case that they cannot solve themselves, that's when they bring in L. L is the big dog. He's the final, he's like that final ultimatum. He's the big gun, the atomic bomb, if you will. You got a case that needs to be solved and nobody can figure it out, you call in L. He's a one-man army in himself. Then, once we get introduced to L, a few things we learn about this character straight off the bat. Number one, he is extremely intelligent, to the point where it's scary, okay? And he's cunning. He's very cunning because in episode 2 of Death Note, L does, he plays a farce on light to solidify some of the assumptions that he had about Kira. So that was bold enough in itself, because he did it on public television too. And then there's also the thing when L formally introduces himself in person to Light and tells him that he is L. And that is one thing about L that I do admire. That I do admire. It's not so much that he's so intelligent, but he is so bold. He's so audacious. And you have to admire that about L. Now, and then of course, later on in the series, L, he formally teams up with the Japanese police department, and he pretty much has, this small knit of Japanese policemen and investigators, and they're the Kira task force, if you will. And then there are also things about L that we learn about throughout the series. Certain little niches about him. One of them being that, number one, L likes sweets. L likes sweets. Very seldomly did we see L without chewing on something sweet. Anything from coffee to cake, cookies, ice cream, candy. He likes sweets. Another thing L does, L, while he is somewhat respectful, his intellect also enables him with this condescending speech towards other people. Let's face it, L, while he was the good guy, L was a bit of an asshole. He was a bit of a douchebag because at times he spoke to people in a very condescending manner. But once again, that plays into L's his ego, his persona, you know. I mean, you can argue that L is just as audacious and he has just as much as an ego as Light. He even says in one episode, he says, okay, I know that Kira is a person who doesn't like to lose. And they say, well, how do you know that? He said, because I don't like to lose. You see what I'm saying? Like, and that's what I like. That's what I like. And that's what I applaud the creators of Death Note for doing, because they made a character. He wasn't just cut and dry, you know, from an intellectual standpoint. He was just, he was just, like this robot. No, L had a personality. He did. He had a personality. He was just as much human as any other character in the series. He was flawed, okay? L had a pride thing with him. Because another thing, going back into L's whole demeanor and his whole personality, L never could accept he could never contemplate the possibility of him being incorrect. L, a lot of times in his assessments, he used percentages to let you know, I'm 80% right on this. I'm 10% right on this. You see what I'm saying? Very seldomly did L ever admit that he was wrong about anything. He hardly ever did that. And whenever he had to face that, you could see it in his character. You could see it in his development. That was a major flaw for L, was the fact that he could never succumb to being wrong. And then of course, L had those other little niches. Like, he would sit in his chair like this. You probably can't see my head. It's being cut off from the camera. But L would sit in his chair like this. And he said that sitting in his chair like this allowed for his deduction abilities to rise by like 10%. He never sat normally. He never slouched. He always sat up like this in his chair. I'm sorry, but that's a very intriguing characteristic for a character to have. It holds your attention. It makes you look twice. It's like, huh? And then apparently L is he's a very skilled fighter. Especially with his feet. And then of course, I mean, the biggest thing, the most noticeable thing about L is the fact that, he was such an accomplished detective, and apparently he's a fighter and he's so goddamn intelligent, but he's so young. He's so young. I doubt L is I don't even doubt he's within his mid-teens. I mean, not mid-teens, mid-20s. Like I would probably guess that L is probably 24 at the most, maybe 26, but no more than that. And that was so interesting about the character. Now I think, okay, so dwelling more into what was it about the character that I enjoyed so much, it was that L as a character, he was the perfect opposing force to the character of Light in almost every way. In almost every way, he was the perfect opposing force, the perfect opponent, the perfect adversary. L, for the most part, was able to match Light on almost everything. On almost everything. Now, spoiler alert, Light did get the last laugh. But look how long it took him though. It took 25 episodes before Light was actually able to come out on top. It took 25 episodes before Light came out on top. And it is, I won't lie to you, throughout the series I was rooting for Light. And I didn't like L at first because, you know, I was in opposition of him. You know, I was rooting for, I was Team Kira. I was rooting for Light. So, of course, you know, I didn't like L first go round. But after L's departure from the series and then the introduction of Nier and Mello, it really made me appreciate L. Because I didn't like Nier and Mello. I didn't. I mean, Mello I could tolerate, but I didn't like Nier at all. Like, I did not like Nier at all. Not one bit. Nier was a capricious prick, and I did not fucking like him at all. Did not like Nier at all. Couldn't stand the little bastard. But once we got introduced to those characters, that's when I really started to miss L. Really started to miss him. And yeah, I mean, I don't want to make this video too long, you know, because I got a marathon record and this camera doesn't really have a knack for marathon recording. But honestly, you know, there are so many more things I could possibly say about this character. But especially for those of you who haven't seen the series yet, I don't want to give away too much. Because Death Note is one of my favorite anime. Definitely within my top 10 favorite of all time. And it is the most enjoyable anime I've seen in the past 5 years. It is. Because it was a roller coaster ride from start to finish. 37 episodes. It was such a magnificent anime. Highly original, very well written, so well animated. Everything from the music, everything about this series from start to finish was perfect. Perfect. There aren't too many series that I can say genuinely don't have many flaws. Death Note does not have many flaws at all. I can't see no more than a handful, man. Damn good series, and the characters made it that much better, that much more enjoyable. So with all of that said, the reason why I'm bringing all that up is because, honestly, for all of you who've seen Death Note, you know where I'm coming from when I'm talking about the character of L. For all of you who haven't, I don't want to give away too much because I genuinely want you all to go through that experience with this series. It is such a good fucking series. So good. And yes, and L is such a good fucking character. So with that said, that's going to do it for my favorite heroes video segment. Once again, I want to thank you all for joining me this week on Rogues Gallery Incorporated. As always, guys, comment, rate, subscribe. And also, you know, check out the rest of the Rogues Gallery Incorporated. My man Strapped Up 24, Hugo Strange, J Mason 105, and Uncle Man. Check our videos out. And with that said, this will do it for me. This is Larry Williams of Otaku Assemble, the OAW Commander-in-Chief, signing off, and I'll catch you cats later. Peace.